Hey, what's up everybody? Hope you're having an amazing day so far. I'm your host Phil, and today's video, I want to check out Neutron Audio QUANTUM SPEAKERs. Let's first roll that intro clip and then get straight to work. Alright, so this is perhaps going to be a longer video, so bear with me. There's going to be a first section where I got some talking points which I want to get across, and then the section afterwards is going to be the entire audio demo review section. Let's first talk about what quantum speakers are, where they're coming from, what the idea is behind that. Now, Quantum Speakers is a product which has been recently launched by Neutron Audio, and very oversimplified, and in a nutshell, these are speaker models which you can load into the Neural Amp Modeler. So what they have done over here, by their basically proprietary technology, meaning they have a certain solid state amplifier, they cranked the NAM trainer file through that solid state amplifier, and that then is used to capture all of the dynamics of the speaker cabinet which is being mic'd up. So a lot of people are kind of placing that as a replacement of impulse responses, although they are inherently different in the way they are working. I'm going to get to that at a later point in time. However, it's basically another solution in order to solve the problem that in the digital domain you don't have a real guitar cabinet. So it's emulating that as good as possible. The thought process behind that is using a neural amp model catches up the nonlinearities which are presented to you by whatever system you are looking at. So in case of a guitar amplifier, you're checking for the nonlinearities of that guitar amplifier. That's why neural amp models are extremely accurate when it comes to representing the way things are being distorted by the amplifier. And with the speaker cabinet, we are looking at the same things, although it's not that extreme as with an amplifier. So depending on the working curve of a speaker, you are rather in a linear part where everything's running smoothly and kind of, like always the same, depending on how loud you set things up. But as soon as you reach a certain threshold, you are basically cranking that speaker. And it's adding a little bit of its own distortion because, physically the paper of the membrane is simply not able to push further. So, these kind of nonlinearities cannot really be represented by impulse responses. Impulse responses are basically frequency response curves, which are made by just shoving in a sine sweep from 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz, and then looking at how the system which you want to look at, usually rooms, are reacting to that respective input signal. So it is inherently a different approach to that. I would personally say none is better than the other, they all work well. It's in the end for you to decide which one you personally prefer. And that already is kind of my second talking point over here, which I kind of want to bring into the field, is I see a lot of comments which are kind of tearing apart the core idea behind quantum speakers, and I think it's a little bit unreasonable because, we are looking at a nonlinear system, at least when we're looking at the extremes, and we're using something which can capture nonlinearity in order to, facilitate that. I don't see a point where that can be argued as something which is bad or inferior or something in that regard. A lot of people are already used to the idea of using impulse responses, and there are some claims out there which are saying, quantum speaker is a replacement for impulse responses. I don't agree to that. I don't agree to that assessment. Impulse responses will have their place. They will remain in check, and they still sound good. Just using a quantum speaker, although they really do sound good and feel good to play through, it does not change that I still enjoy impulse responses, So people are a little bit too heated in the debates around that stuff. And also kind of moving in the argument that they want to hear the same system having an IR made through them, and then a quantum speaker model in order to A/B them. It's flawed inherently because an impulse response will always work on a specific working point of that working curve of the speaker. So you are basically bound to that very narrow slither within the working curve, while the quantum speaker, by design through the NAM trainer file, when setting up everything accordingly, which they have done in my opinion, catches like a very wide dynamic range of the speaker. So it's an inherently different thing, which I think we should not really discuss about, but rather although I hate the term and I hate the saying, use our ears to determine what sounds best. That's the only way you really can make a meaningful assessment. Because if you would check for impulse responses, if you like them, you would go the same route. You would simply take those impulse responses, load them into an IR player, and then listen for yourself if it sounds good or not, if it matches your expectation of the tone which you're seeking. And the same has to be done with quantum speakers, in my opinion. So there's that. Another point which I see a lot of people making is regarding CPU usage. I think it's by now kind of a common knowledge that the Neural Amp Modeler plugin in itself is kind of a CPU hog, and it takes a lot of resources, and people are like trying to assess the value of quantum speakers based on the fact that they would have to then basically push their PCs eventually to their limits, and they cannot then run that. So they're saying like, okay, an IR takes way less CPU, why should I worry about the quantum speakers? I personally have to kind of rebuttal that and say, if you are in the position that you have to think about running one or two neural amp models behind your actual neural amp model, then you're not anyways in the intended, target range of potential clients for this product. I'm not speaking on behalf of anybody. This is just my personal opinion on this. Because, you do have to need a strong, powerful PC in order to run this. Like Neural Amp Modeler takes a lot of resources, and you just have to live with the fact. You can go ahead with bouncing and rendering out your stuff and so on and so forth, yada, 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 increasing the buffer size of your digital audio workstation. All of that is possible, but it's kind of faking it until you're making it, kind of. And, it's just what it is. Either you got the CPU power to host those Neural Amp Modeler plugins, or you don't. So there's that. So what am I propagating? What is my message over here? Kind of boils down to, let's keep our minds open. Because I remember back in the day, 2008, 2009-ish, when Pod Farm 2 was released, and I went ahead and used impulse responses for my cabinet, and I disabled the cabinet section. That was totally unheard of. Like, everybody was like saying, no, you have to use the things which are contained within the software. And it was just years after that it slowly kind of became, I would say, common knowledge that you could just simply go ahead and, it's okay to disable the cabinet section and use impulse responses instead. So that was one thing which is growing, and maybe this is just kind of a next evolutionary step in that regard as CPU resources are becoming less and less of a constraint, that we are just moving on to the next thing. We already saw it with the IRDX from Bogren Digital. People are seeking something which adds dynamics into it, and why not then use something which replicates the real behavior, the real dynamic behavior, instead of things which are faking it, like putting a saturator behind the impulse response loader. Doesn't make sense to me. Also, quantum speakers are priced fairly reasonable. So we're talking here about either like £20 in a sales situation or £30 in a regular situation, which is not that much more than a good made or well-made IR pack. And if you see the options which we have, which we're going to explore in a moment, we got a lot of different options which are really high quality, professionally made stuff. I would easily pay also 30 to 40 bucks for that as well, when it was like a normal regular IR pack. So, it's just kind of a cost value proposition which we're talking about over here, and in my book, quantum speakers serve that pretty well. All right, so I think that's enough talking. I made like 5 revisions of this video so far, and I kind of always ditched the other revisions because I was way more in a ranty mood on the other videos. But I think it doesn't serve the purpose of getting points across and facilitating a cool discussion. I'm totally open-minded for different opinions and different viewpoints on this. If you have something to share that, let me know down below in the comments. I absolutely appreciate any kind of, constructive, cool discussion with other people. Also, if they have differing opinions, my perspective doesn't have to necessarily be your perspective. But however, as I said before, we have to let our ears decide whether or not we like what we're hearing. So let's move on to the audio demo, to the review portion, where I'm just checking out quantum speaker profiles. All right, so now let's explore the quantum speakers in the context of high-gain guitars, because that's what I do over here. I already got a NAM capture prepared, which is capturing my EVH 5150 boosted by the Lichtlärm Audio King in yellow. And yeah, without any sort of cabinet emulation, it's sounding like this. Now, unfortunately, that sounds absolutely horrible, which is normal. And now I could go ahead and add either an impulse response in order to kind of fill in that gap, that missing link, or I could add quantum speakers. And that's what we're going to do exactly over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open a new instance of the neural amp modeler. Going to disable all of these automation stuff going on. And then I'm just going to navigate towards the folder where I got the quantum speakers in there. I'm gonna go for the Greenback pack for now because I think that really sounds phenomenal and feels really good to play. Yeah, when you go to any kind of quantum speaker folder setup, you got the mic profiles and the filters. The filters have 3 IRs, which are replicating the frequency response of an SSL console with different high cut and low cut values. And when going to the mic profiles, you got quick starts and you got discrete mic captures. So when you look at the quick start, you got 5 generic sort of tones, which are blends and mixes, and then you got the discrete mics, which give you all the flexibility you need, starting from different condensers up to different dynamics and ribbon mics, and then also the sub capture, which is really powerful, and we're going to explore that at a later point in this video. First off, we're going to go to the quick start, and we're just going to go for balanced. We're going to leave everything at 0 for the time being and listen to what it sounds like. I think that sounds absolutely phenomenal. This is a tone which I would not complain about at all. Yeah, really sounds great. The feel is so good. You got to feel it for yourself. There's a free pack, which I'm going to also link down below, which you can download. It really, really, really makes a difference. I'm having a pretty high buffer size over here, 256 samples, way too high for my taste. And if I would now play through IRs, I would hate it. But using the quantum speaker, I have no issue. It's super weird how that feel part makes a huge difference when using the quantum speakers versus any type of IRs, even my own made ones, which I really like. Okay, let's just navigate a little bit through these and let's hear what they sound like. So here's the balanced again. All right, so my personal favorite out of this was the balanced tone and the clear tone. However, on the clear tone, I would have to do adjustments. So let's go again to the balanced tone, just to kind of north in our ears a little bit. I could actually imagine that the clear would sound really good in a, rather retro style thrash mix. Yeah, I can easily imagine that that would then work out with that fizz, which is still coming through, but still offering that oomph to it. But if I would not like that kind of fizz, I could go now ahead and use these filters, which I was just speaking about. So going to the filter section and loading the 6K 50 Hertz filter, so high cut at 6K, low cut at 50 Hertz, we would get this result. I gotta bump the volume a little bit to compensate for that. That has way more of the smoothness of the balanced setup. Let's go ahead, take output again away and disable the IR. So there's that. Yeah, a lot of different flexibility. Of course, you could use also an EQ plugin after that and then use that instead of the IR. But the nice thing about the IR is you can use the neural amp modeler as it is, you know, the program as it is, without having any issue. There's always an IR loader when you got a NAM loader, kind of, no matter if you got the NAM Universal or the the regular neural amp modeler plugin. So what I could do is in standalone mode, I got my reamping chain going on, and then the input of the neural amp modeler plugin is my reamping input, so coming back from the reamping chain. And then I load in my quantum speaker, and then I got my IR slot, which is taking care of the high frequency and low frequency roll off. That's kind of a scenario which I could easily imagine where this is very handy that we also got these IRs combined. Now let's move over to the mic profiles, which are basically the meat and sauce of this quantum speaker pack, because it offers that flexibility, which is so critically acclaimed and part of the pack, part of the appeal of the quantum speaker pack. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna go ahead to the neural amp modeler plugin, and I'm gonna take away the impulse response, set this to 0 again, and I'm gonna now navigate to the discrete mics. So let's talk about the options which we got. We got 6 microphones, 2 condensers, 2 dynamics, 2 ribbon. They are labeled as C1, C2, D1, D2, RB1, RB2. C1 is the Neumann U84, I think it is. The D1 is the Shure SM57, and the RB1, if I'm not mistaken, is the Royer 121. So really sought after tones, which we got over here. C2, or everything labeled with the 2, is different and differing between the packs depending on personal taste of Stuart, who's the technical leader and the dude making mainly these profiles and captures. And yeah, what suits that cabinet basically best, or that speaker basically best. What we got over here, you can sometimes see the label OA, that stands for off axis, and the label RM stands for room. Now what is very interesting and cool is that on the ribbons, we got RM and RMOA. That allows us to configure a Blumlein stereo configuration. So that means like when you have like a room mic somewhere, or 2 room mics which are ribbon, one is like facing in one direction and the other is tilted 90 degrees across that, and then you pan them out in stereo, you get like a really wide setting. I gotta see how I can incorporate that into the video, eventually only with a small audio snippet where I'm just playing through, because my routing right now currently is totally set up so that I'm doing mono configurations. But let's see how I can kind of get that eventually to work. Moving onward, greenbacks, I'm gonna use the cap edge because I like that a lot. So I'm gonna go with D1, Shure SM57, cap edge, and this is what it sounds like. Now this already sounds really good. I like that a lot. I like how that sounds. Is very balanced, to be honest. It has all the frequencies which I really like. So nothing bad over there to report. Now what I'm gonna do is, because quantum speakers have this speciality that they can replicate the dynamic range, and greenbacks are very notoriously known for being good when cranked up, let's explore these possibilities a little bit. So as you can see, this cap edge profile will remain as at 0, 0. So this will be basically uncranked at all times. The second capture over here, so this second neural amp modeler instance, which I loaded with a quantum speaker, same quantum speaker, I'm gonna now bump that to round about 12 dB. And I'm going to take that away round about 10 dB, 9.5. I'm going to use the Julian loudness meter in order to make sure that there's no real loudness change. So I have to adjust the loudness. Like, we're just going to play some chugs and see how loud that is. I'm currently now running through the uncranked. Okay, so we're ending somewhere around minus 13 dB LUFS. And we're going to do the same for the other capture. So we're ending somewhere around a little bit more than 12 dB. So that means that I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to crank the uncranked setup by around about 1 dB or 0.9 dB. So they should be now pretty much on par loudness wise. Yeah, and now let's go ahead. I can use this over here to flicker between them. I'm going to take the Julian loudness meter away. So whenever, let's just call this normal, and let's call the second one cranked. Now, whenever I use this keyboard shortcut, which is Control B, I can toggle between the two profiles. I'm just gonna now play some chugs. It should become very apparent that there's a lot of high-end roll-off on the crank setup and the mids are being pushed forward. And this is exactly the same behavior which I heard that Greenbacks make whenever you crank them like really high. And this is the thing. This is something which an impulse response would never be able to properly replicate. You could make a frequency curve which is on that high working point, and you could label that, you know, like Celestion did it a lot with, they called them high gain and low gain captures. So you got high gain captures, which are basically super loud captures, and you got low gain captures, which are within the safe working environment, so to speak, of the speaker. Yeah, but you don't have that dynamic, you know, dynamic behavior. And if you would now play with clean, with edge of breakup, with crunch, those dynamics might be a big part of the realism while playing through, because like if you play like super quiet, then you're working in that safe region, and if you're smacking the strings, then you're like bam, pushing up into that region where the high end roll off is happening. For my personal purposes over here, you know, playing metal and everything like being compressed to hell through my neural amp modeler with the amplifier profile, this is more of a decision, where do I want to be on the curve, and just set up. But having this flexibility is already cool. Let me just play a little bit through. I'm just gonna, you know, move while I'm playing. So this is really cool. This allows to kind of enter a totally new rabbit hole in regard of chasing the tone, you know, like chasing for the exact right place within the saturation curve of your cabinet speaker, so to speak. Yeah, so that's really cool. Okay, I'm gonna now move on and kind of remain within the normal ballpark, because I just want to make that point clear. Quantum speakers have their, you know, have their reason, and they sound like realistically to what they're trying to replicate. Okay, I'm gonna just label this as being the SM57, and I'm gonna go with the cap profile. So let's go with the cap profile, there we go. And now I'm gonna null this again. As a pre-measurement, I'm going to go ahead and set the volume a little bit lower, because I'm now gonna add a second microphone. I'm just gonna call this 1, 2, 1, and I'm gonna go with ribbon 1 and on the cone. Let's go with the cone. I'm currently running 2 in a row, like the SM57 is going into the R121, and of course that doesn't make sense, you know, like, because having a cabinet running into a cabinet does not make much sense, but there's a cool trick in Reaper where you can right-click on an effects and run selected effects in parallel with the previous effects. So now we're going from my amplifier in parallel to the SM57 and to the R121. And then, you know, making everything a little bit lower volume, this is what it sounds like. Now, let me toggle off the volume compensation and the R121. Now, of course, there's a volume difference because I did not match them exactly to the same volume, but you can hear that there's clearly a very, very different tonality going on between just running the SM57 and having the Royer added to it. I mean, it's the same thing if you would like mic up your cabinet with two different microphones and then mix them, that they're sounding in the same volume. So you can now do all of the different things. You can adjust a little bit here the output on the R121 capture, therefore adding a little bit more of the volume on the master plugin. So there's a lot of different things which you can experiment with. It sounds absolutely awesome, man. It feels awesome. It sounds awesome. Sounds awesome, awesome, awesome. Okay, what else do we have in the packs over here, the Quantum Speaker packs? So, we also have the sub pack, which is very interesting in my personal opinion. I'm gonna again take all of the normalization stuff out. I'm gonna mute my microphone and you'll only hear the sub capture. So that really adds like a lot of low end, massive low end coming in over here. I'm gonna go ahead and as a precaution, again take down 3 dB and make sure that the sub runs previously or in parallel to the volume adjustment, which has the both closed mics combined already. So this is now closed mics all in parallel with the sub mic. I hope you can hear that difference in the low end chugginess, that response. I mean, this is super cool. You can now go ahead and play stuff like this. You all know that riff, and it has that chugginess to it. I really love this. I really love this sub feature so much, blending in, and you have all of these different options out there. And now, to be honest, this for 30 quid, absolutely worth the price. All right, next segment is comparing basically the Greenbacks versus V30s, because the V30 has all of the same mic positions, so I'm gonna kind of just run quickly through. This is the sound which I just crafted, which you just heard through the Greenbacks. All right, this is now the V30 with basically the same setup. The only thing which I change is the SM57 capture is not the cap capture, but the cap edge, because V30s are just incredibly bright compared to Greenbacks. Sounds absolutely ridiculously awesome, and it feels so good to play through. Alright, I have now spoken about the Blumlein stereo effect, which I described earlier. So this ribbon microphones where one is set like this and one is set like this, and you pan them across. I have now replicated this within the Reaper DAW over here. So I got the amp capture that's going to my cabinet section, which just has the SM57, R121 and the sub loaded in parallel. And then I'm also going to the Blumlein left, which is the ribbon room off access, and the Blumlein right, which is the regular ribbon room. So I'm just going to play it first without those Blumlein mic setups, and then going to add that to the mix. Now you should hear that it sounds like super huge, super wide, a little bit too exaggerated in my opinion. So of course you have to dial this in to your liking, you know, like just maybe like so, and let's give it another shot. So that sounds a lot better, a lot more clearer. And yeah, I mean, this entire pack, this quantum speaker pack, gives you so many different options to sculpt your tone. It's really cool, it's really amazing. And again, you know, like the cost value proposition definitely is there, because you have all of this, let's say, professional setups which you can achieve with this. In the next segment, I just want to showcase that quantum speakers are also capable on running on hardware. Now, I got the Dimehead NAM player over here, and if I go to the gain setup over here, you can see that I'm using my EVH plus the King in Yellow capture, the same capture I have been using before, just dialing in the gain a little bit lower, so that's like 3 or something. And in the actual NAM amp block, so to speak, I'm creatively using now the quantum speaker for the, what is it? The Greenback on the cap, and this is what we get. Now you could use, in theory, the impulse responses with the filter frequency response curve in here, but you also could just go to the IR section and then adjust the high pass and low pass to your likings. I'm just going to go with some very extreme settings just to kind of make a point over here. So I'm going to massively take away highs and lows. And now everything is kind of a matter of just setting it up according to your likings over here. I'm going to go back into the NAM model, just going to take that gain out a little bit less. That's a little bit too less. Let's go with 2.6. And now I could go ahead and use whatever quantum speaker single profile I have over here. For example, I could go with the Greenback balance setup over here. And through the routing functionality of the Dimehead NAM player, I still could set the line out after the boost tap, and therefore making sure that out of the line out, I'm going out with the amp only, and out of the XLR, I'm going out with the entire signal chain. So that would be a possibility with this incredibly cool hardware unit as well, and also kind of porting quantum speakers to the stage. All right, so now that we got pretty much all the test scenarios kind of talked through, which I can think of right now, yeah, my final thoughts are quite obvious. I really like quantum speakers. I think they are a great addition to the toolkit in order to solve that problem of not having a real guitar cabinet in the digital domain. You know, whether or not you like the approach, whether or not you like the workflow, that's a total different thing. I do understand if somebody would just like to simply use their IR loader as it is right now, but maybe at some point in time, we're not going to talk anymore about IR loaders, but we're going to talk about, you know, speaker profile loaders or something in that regard. So as CPU technology kind of further evolves and that becomes less of an issue to load those particular speaker profiles, maybe that's the future, which we will see. I have no idea. I just like what I heard. I hope you liked also what you heard. There's a free pack which you can check out for yourself. You know, make your own picture about that. Currently, I think for 1.5 weeks or something going on, the V30 pack is still at a sale for 20 quid. After that's going to be regular priced at 30 quid. And then there's going to be a new release, which I don't know currently what speaker is on there. But there are some packs already kind of, you know, in the back, in the back end prepared already, just ready for release as votes come in through the community. So there's a Facebook group also as well. You know, my pledge to you would be just be open-minded, just try it out for yourself, see if you like it. If you don't like it, absolutely fine. Then just continue to use impulse responses or whatever you are using in order to achieve that guitar cabinet sound. With that out of the way, I hope you learned something out of this. I hope you liked what you see. If you did, I would absolutely appreciate you subscribing to the channel. And with that out of the way, I wish you a great evening. See you in the next video. Until then, keep it metal.